To Left on Nesson, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of the Boston Red Sox. Hello and welcome to our show. That, of course, is Julian McWilliams. You know him well, national baseball reporter for CBS Sports. My name is Alana Rizzo, your co-host for the next hour, filling in for Tom Caron. Julian, great to be with you. I'm loving the fit. I love the glasses. I love the shirt. I can't wait to meet you in person. My man, loving the fit. Before we get into grades for the first half of the season, what is going on with the Boston Red Sox? Losers of 5 straight, day off yesterday. They take on the Toronto Blue Jays today. What gives?
Well, I can't wait to meet you in person as well. And I'm sorry for all the kindergarten pictures in the background. I'm in New York and it's super bedlam in my house. It's crazy. My kids are here and it's nuts going on. So
life. That's okay. It's life.
So what's going on with the Red Sox? A lot. I mean, a lot of you've been around this team some, and you know it's like it's never, ever seems to be without chaos. And obviously the Rafael Devers situation happened where he gets traded. And then you're looking at, they just aren't playing well from a sense of they're not hitting. And I think, Craig Breslow said something along the lines of, I think we're a better team. We might be better off without sort of Rafael Devers than we are with him. And I just don't see that. They've scored, 28 runs over the last 9 games without Devers. Their lineup is light. And even when they do get Alex Bregman back, which is supposed to be probably maybe sometime within the next month or so, I don't see that even making much of a difference because they can just pitch around him. So when you're looking at this club and you're saying what's going on, well, they're not pitching, they're not hitting, and they don't play defense. And I think that's a recipe for disaster. And if you can't do either of those 3 things, especially if you can't pitch or play defense, you're in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, that was a very interesting comment by Craig Breslow that he feels that they could have more wins without Rafael Devers than they can with him. An interesting comment. You mentioned Alex Bregman is on his way back probably in a month. He is a finalist, by the way, to start the All-Star game for the Red Sox at third base. All right, let's go into this whole first half because we are at the halfway mark right now as far as the season is concerned. What grade, Julian, would you give the Sox for the first half of the season?
I would have probably given him a C, I think, because they did have and luckily it's not a D, right? I think they did have a stretch where they were playing well. And you do see like some of the younger guys emerging. I know Roman Anthony hasn't really played well, but he's been hitting the ball hard. All of his underlying numbers suit well. And Marcelo Meyer, I think he's a guy that's going to be a really good player for a long time here in the league. And he's had some clutch hits. However, they just don't have necessarily the right amount of talent group, I don't think. When you're looking at guys who try to depend on people to make plays and ultimately try to put themselves in positions to win, I don't think they can necessarily do that well, and they haven't done that to this point. So I have to give them a C, particularly with their pitching staff. Walker Buehler has also been a disappointment. I mean, 7 walks and 2 hit batsmen in the day. So I think it's just kind of been a mess.
Yeah, you mentioned the 7 walks, and this is something that Walker Buehler said. This is not who he wants to be, and I definitely do not believe that the Red Sox have seen what they thought they were getting in Walker Buehler. Hopefully he can get back to that form. You mentioned, Julian, that they are a C. I mean, that's average, right? A C is an average grade, and that's kind of what the Red Sox have been all the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what they've been like the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, 3 or 4 or 5 years too, right? That's middling team. And I don't think something has to give at some point. What do you blow it up? Well, you can't do that in this market because this market is, they crave winning and you have to win. But they've been this team that's been sort of average for the time I cover them, they were average. And for the time after me that I've covered them, they've been average. So if you're looking at this team, you're saying, hey, what grade do you give them? I give them an average grade. It's a C. And I think that's pretty much fair. They have to step it up. I don't know what they do at the deadline, but they have to put themselves in a position to win, and they haven't done that to this point.
Yeah, it's been about a half season of mediocrity so far. They sit at 40-42, so they're 2 games below 500 at this point. All right, Julian, let's do some more grades here. Who has been the biggest surprise as far as on the team so far this season?
I think you have to I wouldn't say a surprise necessarily. For me, I think he's a surprise because I didn't expect him to. I would say Garrett Crochet because, and I know he came in with their high expectations. But Alana, like working in this market and being in this market, he's lived up to all of them. He came from Chicago, right? I think, and now if you're looking at him in the Cy Young race with the Tarek Skubal, I didn't expect that. This was a guy down the stretch last year who did not sort of pitch. They had him on a pitching limit where they had him pitching, some on four, and he wouldn't go more than 4 2/3 innings. So, but now he's been a guy who's been able to go 7, 8 innings, and he's been able to hold his velocity. He hasn't hit 100 much this year, but he hasn't needed it. He has his cutter. He has his mix of pitches to go with his fastball, and the cutter has really been, I think, the calling card for him this year. And if there's any guy on this team that's been a success story this year, I think it's been Garrett Crochet.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you there. And to make sure I'm getting this right, to get an idea, Julian, of just how dominant Garrett Crochet has been the first half of the season, here's the list of pitchers for the Boston Red Sox that have had at least 110 strikeouts and fewer than 30 runs allowed through their first 17 starts of a season. That would be Garrett Crochet and Pedro Martinez. So that's some pretty good company to keep. Garrett Crochet has been everything the Red Sox could have hoped for. Okay, so he's perhaps the biggest gift, the biggest surprise, if you will, maybe outperforming what we even expected. Who has been the most, I don't want to say disappointing player, I don't think that's fair, but who do you think has not necessarily performed to his capabilities as of yet?
I would have to go back to Walker Buehler. I mean, what I've seen from him, I know he had a good stretch last year where he pitched well toward the end of the season, and he came off Tommy John surgery, so you couldn't really hold that against him. But you thought there would be more there in the tank, and I haven't seen that yet from him. I think he's been sort of a guy that's been up and down. He's sort of looked as if he hasn't, his outing the other night was a sort of, and I'm going to be careful in saying it, but that was a DFA like night where you see a guy get DFA'd after that. The fact that he's making his next start is a good sign, and hopefully he can get back on the right track, because you've seen it with him before. I mean, he's been one of the better pitchers in the game. But I was talking to a former player who played with the Red Sox in years past, and he said, moving on from especially a team like the Dodgers is tough. I mean, Alana, you cover them for years, and you just know what they mean to this baseball, what they mean to the brand of baseball, what they mean. It's like Yankees and Dodgers. Those are like, 1A, 1B. You can put them up there, and, you come over to the Red Sox. Yes, certainly it's still a big market, a big team, but it's a huge adjustment, right? You go from playing with Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, and now you're with these younger guys, Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony and Trevor Story, trying to figure it out. So if you're looking at that at his performance this year, I'll have to say Walker Buehler.
Yeah, I wish that Red Sox fans could see the capability that Walker Buehler has, because I did cover him for 7 seasons in Los Angeles. And I know that there's more to what Walker Buehler has shown than he's showing right now. I mean, he's had some pretty big innings in his career, and he's had some pretty big outs, including in the postseason. So hopefully he can get it on track, because he certainly needs to. He entered his last start with a 10.5 ERA. There's a lot of improvement that needs to be made there. Okay. Which young player, it seems like the Red Sox, Julian, are looking towards the future, right? Rafael Devers is gone. They got rid of, a couple of other people that they didn't have interest in bringing back. And the future is now, and the future is here. What young player has taken the biggest step forward, in your opinion?
I know most people are probably looking for people to say Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony and people of that sort of group of guys, but I'm looking at Ceddanne Rafaela. I mean, I think obviously the defense speaks for itself. That's why the Red Sox got him up here. That's why he made the team out of spring training last year, was because he could play defense. He was one of the better center fielders in baseball, and the Red Sox really needed to shore up their outfield defense, particularly with losing Alex Verdugo, who was a Gold Glove finalist the year before. But the hitting piece of it is something that I didn't necessarily see coming. When I spoke to Pete Fatsi earlier in the year, he said he was encouraged by the strides that Ceddanne had made in the offseason with his approach. And this year, I think he already has 14 walks. He had 15 the entire season last year, right? And I think you're looking at a guy who not sure if he's necessarily an all-star level player. He certainly has all-star level talent, but I think he has the ability to be a really good player in the big leagues. And if, people talk about the trade deadline, and I know his name had came up at certain points, like, well, the Mets might be interested in him because they need a center fielder. I wouldn't trade that guy because it's a rare amount of players that can do what he does in center field, plus be able to pop one over the fence. And if you put the right team around him, sort of like a la Jackie Bradley Jr., where he had like Mookie Betts in the lineup, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, that guy becomes that much more important, that much more special to this team and this ball club, and sort of becomes the glue guy to this ball club. So I have to go with St. Anne because I mean he's been fun to watch. As you see his approach is better. He's stronger this year. He put a really emphasis on getting in the weight room, getting bigger, and I think he's just turned into a really good player for this team.
Yeah, he's a good defensive player, as you mentioned. We knew that about him. I think offensively, though, he's really made some strides because he's not chasing as much outside of the zone. He's waiting for the pitch. He's not striking out as much as he did. Still striking out some, but certainly not to the clip that he was striking out before. So I see your Ceddanne Rafaela, and I'm going to raise you Jarren Duran. And I know that Jarren Duran is not as young as the other guys. He's not as young as Marcelo Meyer. He's not as young as Roman Anthony. He's not as young as Christian Campbell, Ceddanne Rafaela. But I think, Julian, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've covered this team longer than I have. I think the Boston Red Sox offense goes as Jarren Duran goes. And obviously, this is a guy that plays a good defensive outfield, but he's something to withstand. He's something in that lineup that I think you're going to get a professional at bat. He has the wheels. He's kind of like a doubles machine. I like the improvement that Jarren Duran has made, not only on the field, but also just a maturity level. It seems like he's taken that to another level.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what's been missing with this team, right? And during this lull is that Jarren, while you mentioned he's made strides, the performance really hasn't necessarily been there. I mean, I think he has like a 713 OPS, and last year, like when the performance that he put on was special. I mean, it was every night he was doing something, be it a play in the outfield, be it an at bat in a clutch situation. I remember we were in Houston last year, and he hit this homer to the go ahead homer, and I think it was like a 97, 98 mile per hour fastball left on left, and he hit it out to the Crawford boxes. But it would have been a homer in a lot of ballparks. It wasn't a Crawford box homer. It was not like one of those like cheap home runs. And this year he sort of had his issues against lefties. But you do see, Alana, as you said, he goes as they go. And I mean, they go as he goes. And I think that's why a lot of times they've been falling into these places, because sometimes he hasn't been able to get on base and put together the at-bats that you've seen from him in the past. But man, I'm telling he's such a special talent. I was talking about him last night, and I was saying, in terms of dynamic ability, I put him up there with anybody in the league.
Yeah, I agree with you. He is a dynamic player, and he does go, they do go as he does. All right, let me ask you this, Julian, in your honest opinion, this team has not been able to get any sort of positive traction really throughout the course of the season. They're only 2 games back for a wild card spot in the American League. That being said, do you think they are buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
I think, I think it's going to be a lot of what we've seen in the past of the middling thing, and where the Red Sox say, "Hey, we bought, but like, no, we sold as well, but like, no, but we're still in this. Like, it's like we're in contention for this." So I do see them going out there and getting some arms. Look, I don't think you can necessarily punt on this season, right? I don't think, particularly, you mentioned they're 2 games out, but they're 2 games under 500, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so like there's still a chance for them to make the postseason here. I think for this team to make the postseason, because they certainly have the starter in Garrett Crochet, right? If you go ahead and get another starter out there, and if somebody's like, say, Walker Buehler turns it around, you're looking at 3 guys that can possibly be able to pitch. And Brian Bale's been solid for them. I know he's had his struggles in the beginning of the year. They've been able to piece that part of it together a little bit. Richard Fitz has had his moments. I know he struggled a little bit last night. But you're looking at these guys and you're saying, okay, what do we need? Well, gosh, you do need a middle order of the bat, which is like the Rafael Devers situation.
I was going to say Rafael Devers. That would have been a nice middle of the order bat.
Yeah, that would have been definitely a nice middle of the order type of bat. But now you're looking at this situation, say, okay, we're getting Bregman back. If we go out there and get another bat somewhere on the free agent, on the trade market, and then maybe another starter, we might be right back in this thing. And you can't count this team out because, like we said, it's not the National League where you have teams like just in one division, or excuse me, one division where it's the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, who I know they've had their issues and struggles, but the San Francisco Giants, the Padres. It's not that type of division, right? The AL is not that type of league where we're looking at and saying, okay, well, let's just punt on this. And I just think this is a time which you can, even if they do take that middle ground type of thing, there's still a chance that they could win because this is such a weak division. And I think if the Red Sox just figure it out in that sense, they could be right back in this thing.
I agree with you. I think a lot of fans, Julian, would have said that the fact that they traded Rafael Devers was as significant as punting, but this is also the Boston Red Sox. I don't think you cannot do something at the trade deadline, and I don't think you can not do something to make a move to try to get in there because they're still close. 2 games under 500, just 2 games out of the wild card. All right, that being said, if they're going to make the postseason, if they're going to make a run, who's the player that has to be the key to the turnaround? Is it Jarren Duran being more offensive? Is it Alex Bregman performing to the Alex Bregman capabilities that we know that he can? Who's the guy?
I would have to go with Jarren Duran because he was such at the center and the heartbeat of this team last year. And if you're looking at him now and you're seeing him struggle, I mean, some of it is kind of tough to watch, in a sense of, the player that's in there. And I think with Alex, if it were to be Alex Bregman, well, they can sort of pitch around Alex. Alex was playing really well before he went on the injury list. And the team necessarily wasn't in that much of a different spot. So I think it's Jarren. Jarren has to get back to being who he is. Jarren has to get back to being the guy who consistently takes the extra bag, perhaps stealing some more bags. He's not stealing as much this year. I think that's in part strategic because they want to be. It's important to keep him on the ball field, but he has to be able to let it loose and go. And one thing I noticed with Jarren a lot of times is sometimes you see him when he's trying to figure it out, he doesn't have his leg kick as much, and he's just trying to get his front foot down and sort of be a player that hits from line to line. But when Jarren is on, the leg kick is there. He's on time, and he's driving the ball to left field, to left center. Then he's pulling the ball when he needs to. And I think he's going to have to get back to that leg kick Jarren Duran. Where's the swagger, right? Where's the swagger? When he has the swagger, when he has everything going, and when he has that flair and everything, and playing with this reckless abandon that he's known to play with, that's when you see the talent truly come out. But I think at some points in this season, we've seen a hesitant Jarren Duran, somebody that's being unsure of himself when he's up at the batter's box. And that's not the type of player he is. It has to be full bore all the time because he only knows one speed. It's similar to like a George Springer. I always bring up George Springer. I love watching George play because George doesn't care how ugly it looks, how embarrassing he makes himself look. He's going to go out there and give it his all and swing as hard as he can, run as hard as he can, throw as hard as he can. And that needs to be Jarren Duran. So Jarren Duran is the heartbeat to this team. He needs to figure it out and get back to being who he is because we know the ability that he has.
Yeah, it's not about style points. It's about results. All right, much more to come here on 310 to Left. There's a big series in the AL East coming up starting at Fenway tonight. The Boston Red Sox will host the Toronto Blue Jays. Julian and I will break that down next. Coming up on the 310 to Left podcast, don't forget it's brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series. We'll be right back. All right, we welcome you back to 310 to Left. The Boston Red Sox are finally home after what seemed like a road trip in which they were gone away from Fenway for 2 months. That's what it felt like anyway. Big series coming up, Julian. It's a Toronto Blue Jays series. Obviously, 2 teams battling for position in the AL East. The Red Sox have scuffled, losing 5 of their last games, 5 straight games, I should say. How do you go into this series? What has to be the approach?
I think they have to, first off, I mean, they've dropped the last 2 series, and getting swept by the Angels is something that can't happen, right? I think you have to look at that situation and say they have to perform. They have to play well. And the Blue Jays aren't a team is not short of talent, right? I mean, Vlad Jr., Bo Bichette, one of the better pitching staffs in baseball, Chris Bassett, Kevin Gausman, all those guys are players and performers and have performed on the big level. And I've been out on the Blue Jays this year, right? I was saying, because I've bet on them every year to make the playoffs, and somehow they just always disappointed me. This year they're playing a lot better, and they actually have a chance to make a playoff. So, like, I guess I'm just not the person who should be either pick for or against the Blue Jays. What I do know is, though, that the Red Sox seemingly have issues playing against the Blue Jays sometimes. And I think if you're looking at that situation, you're saying, okay, hey, like, that's a situation where you really, really have to play well, because if they don't, well, then you probably fall 3 or 4 games under 500, and that can't happen anymore, because this, like I said, this is a Red Sox team that has not performed in the past as of recent. And this series, it's a scary series to come into when you've lost your last 2 series and you drop 2 games under 500 playing this team, because one thing about the Blue Jays, they slug and they pitch. And if you have those 2 things, that's tough to get over.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, this could be a massive momentum shift and a massive swing in terms of the standings, because you look at the Red Sox, Julian, they're 2 games below 500. The Toronto Blue Jays have a pretty decent hold on that second wildcard spot in the American League, a 2-game advantage right now in that second spot. I mean, it could be a massive swing series and could really have some implications on the postseason picture. Do you agree?
100%. I think from now on, it's funny. Like, I remember talking to Adam Ottavino, and he was saying, when they was talking about the Braves, and he's like, we were like, what matters in April? And he's like, nothing. And he's like, what matters in May? And he's like, really nothing. And he was like, what about June? He's like, okay, now we go. Like, now's the time where you're like, hey, we got to start racking together some wins, because you have a front office that's up there looking and saying, what are the changes that we can make? We talked about buy or sell. Do we buy? Do we sell? Or do we stay somewhere in the middle? And you have to earn the right, I think, a lot of times to put yourself in a position for a team to buy, right? The Dodgers, they earn that right every year. The Yankees, they have earned that right for the most part every year. You're looking at even a team like the Padres. They have earned that right every year. The Cleveland Guardians, they have earned the right every year. Those teams have been consistently winning. So you look at them and say, we are going to buy because our teams have earned that right. Have the Red Sox earned that right yet? I haven't said that. I can't say if they earned that right. I don't think they've earned that right. So and more than just racking up wins. Yes, that's the most important things. That they have to earn the right to be able to consistently rack up wins following the All-Star break. Because following the trade deadline. Because if you're looking at this team and you're saying on paper, okay, they're supposed to win some games and they haven't been able to put together wins. Well, that doesn't give front office too much of a runway for them to be able to go out there and make moves, because you haven't earned that right. So I think they're going to have these series are totally important from here on out, especially leading into the All-Star break, because you do not want to sit for those 4 or 5 days with the losing records thinking, what are we going to be like when we come out of the break?
Yeah, the Kutter Crawford situation is a hard one, too, losing Kutter Crawford for the entire season. Tanner Houck is still on the IL. You need Lucas Giolito to get back to where he was. Obviously, Walker Buehler needs a massive turnaround. Garrett Crochet's been tremendous, Julian, but he can't do it on his own. Do the Red Sox starting rotation, is there enough in terms of for the Red Sox to move forward? I would think at the trade deadline, that has to be priority number one.
Yeah, I don't think as currently constructed, Alana, that this is enough. There's been too many holes in it. Beyond Garrett Crochet, they've struggled and they've struggled as a staff. And you look at the Tanner Houck situation. We haven't mentioned him. This is a guy that was an all-star last year, right? And he's struggling in AAA. And this isn't just like, oh, he's getting his work in. No, he's just, it's not about his struggles. No, this is a genuine struggle for Tanner Houck. And I think if you're looking at him dating back to even spring training, he was struggling. When he came into the season, he was struggling. When you're looking at him now, he's struggling. And I came into the year thinking this Red Sox rotation was one of the better rotations in all of baseball, because you took into account a Tanner Houck that was really good last year, or especially in the first half of last year. You took into account a Walker Buehler. Hey, he's in his second year removed from Tommy John surgery. He's going to pitch well. You took into account Brian Bayo possibly taking that next step. And those things have not come together. So if you're looking at this pitching staff and you're saying, okay, how do we move forward? Well, one, you got to get better. And two, may have to come to reality that perhaps Tanner Houck is not going to be a starter again this year. And I think that's really disappointing. But you have to, in turn, though, you might have to go out and trade in the trade market and trade for a starter, which we know isn't that easy because the value of a starter is so much that you might have to give up so much. So I think the starting rotation is the answer there.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Bayo, I guess to his credit, has started to go deeper into ball games. That's been a benefit, a positive for Brian Bayo. Has helped out the bullpen, a much needed help because the bullpen has been taxed, certainly with starters not going deep into the game. And that's not just the Red Sox. That's all over the league, starters not going deep into the game. All right, let me ask you this, Julian. If the bats don't reawaken this series, again, coming off 5 straight losses, and they have a tall task ahead with the starting rotation of the Blue Jays, if the bats do not reawaken, do you completely shake things up in terms of lineup construction and just go completely towards youth and try to figure it out that way?
If the bats don't wake up, I think that's a sign that they're not going to be in playoff contention because they have to wake up. And I do think if they don't wake up, you're putting yourself in a position where they're going to have to go point toward the youth because if there's anything that's going to you have to give these fans something to be excited about, right? And if it's not working with this current roster, which it currently isn't, well, then let's just go full young. Let's go Roman Anthony. Let's go Marcelo Meyer. Hopefully, let's go Christian Campbell and try him at first base for the remainder of the year. But I don't think the Red Sox are necessarily thinking like that now. I think Pete Fatty is probably one of the better hitting coaches in the game in terms of getting the most out of guys. And I still think they're confident that they can turn things around. But when you're looking at players like Abraham Toro, who hasn't, had to do it for a full season, it's pretty much been a journeyman, or Carlos Narvaez, he was really good in the beginning, but you're seeing these guys sort of now come back down to earth. That's a concern. So the lineup is going to have to figure it out because the one thing that the Red Sox have done throughout my time covering them and even predating my time covering them is that they hit. They've always been one of the top offenses in the league, right? Even in the years where in the years past where they have fell out of contention in September and you're feeling like you're covering meaningless games. When you look up at the end of the year, the Red Sox have hit. They may have not pitched. They may have not played defense, but they've hit. And the fact that they're not doing that right now, that's a concern for me.
Yeah, you mentioned they may not have defended. I tell you, we haven't even talked about the amount of errors that this team has had. When I was doing the pre- and post-game show on NESN the other day with Lenny DiNardo, they had just eclipsed the Colorado Rockies in terms of the most errors. I want to say 68 errors, I believe, on the season. I mean, that's not going to get it done. There's something that you said in your last conversation there, Julian, that really stood out to me. You've covered this team a long time, obviously now a national baseball writer for CBS Sports. You've covered this game a long time. When did the Red Sox become a let's try this team? Let's try it. Let's put Christian Campbell at first. Let's move this guy all over the place. Let's just try it and see. When did the Red Sox, the Boston Red Sox, become a let's try it team?
I think during the Chaim Bloom era, right? I think, the Rays, he came from the Rays, and the Rays were a team that were known for having guys play certain positions. But the difference with the Rays is that they do that throughout the entire minor leagues, right? They don't tell guys when they get to the big leagues, hey, like you said, let's try some first base. Let's try some center field. Let's try some shortstop. No, those guys are trying positions from the time they hit rookie ball. It's implemented within their system. And so I think with the cost cutting and everything that's gone on, Chaim Bloom sort of brought over the platoon situation. And I think where you saw even a Kyle Schwarber trying first base, right, in 2021. Christian Arroyo trying first base in 2021, 2022. I believe it's 2021. And those things didn't go well. Now, that year, the Red Sox did make the playoffs because they had a boatload of talent still, right? They still had Xander Bogaerts. They still had Rafael Devers. They had a JD Martinez who had reemerged from the dust, from the pitfalls after having a down 2020 season, right? You're looking at those guys and you're saying, okay, we have a group of guys that can go out there and get it done. Christian Vasquez, another guy. But now, when you have all this platoon going on, and you don't put guys in positions every day, you're going to make errors. Errors are going to happen, particularly if you haven't done it for a long, long time. So I would say it started probably really not, I wouldn't say in the 2020 season, because that was, Alana, that was just such, and now that season, the COVID season, was so crazy that you can't really charge anybody to doing, like, I could have been playing first base for all that matters. Like, it was the craziest season I've ever covered. However, I think it really, really started to take shape in 2021. And I don't think people understand how hard it is to play these different positions all the time. What Romy Gonzalez does, moving from first base to second base to third, that's not easy. There aren't that many guys who can do that. There aren't that many Kike Hernandezes who can play shortstop and play second base, then go out and play an elite center fielder. I mean, that's why he's been around the game so long, is because his ability to be able to do that so well. But that doesn't happen much. Players are used to the positions that they play. And when you're just saying, let's try things, well, that let's try things leads to 69 errors on the year.
Yeah, I tell you what, there is a long stretch from everybody that is a super utility now being actually good at that position, bringing 6 or 7 gloves to the yard and actually using all of those gloves effectively. All right, Julian, a lot more to come here on 310 to Left. We're talking about trade deadline. Obviously, that is what is on everybody's mind right now as we creep up to that trade deadline. We're talking Red Sox trading strategy at the deadline when we come back right here on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. We'll be right back. We welcome you back to 310 to Left. This from Tyler Milliken. Jeff Passan and Kylie McDaniel have Alex Bregman and Jarren Duran as the number 1 and number 2 trade deadline candidates on their top 50 list, which is a perfect segue, Julian McWilliams, to what I want to talk to you about right now. So let's talk about that. Does Alex Bregman get traded? Right now, he's only a 10% chance of being moved, but should Boston entertain deals to upgrade pitching or hold on for long-term value when it comes to Bregman?
I think they hold on to that. I don't think he's the guy that you should necessarily go out there and trade after losing Rafael Devers.
Boston would burn to the ground, Julian.
Oh my gosh. Like, it's you've basically gotten rid of $250 million that was left on the Rafael Devers contract. And now you're saying, okay, Bregman's a guy that he fits Fenway well. If there's a guy that's like a match made in heaven for Fenway because he pulls the ball so much and he pulls it in the air with authority, it's Alex Bregman. I mean, you look at his numbers before he went to the IL. He had like, I think, over 900 OPS, the higher 298 batting average, 11, I believe, homers or so. So if you're looking at those numbers, you're saying, yeah, let's trade this guy. Like you said, Boston would burn to the ground. There's no chance. They have to be able to look at it and say, okay, let's give this guy a longer term extension and have him lead the franchise. Because look, the Red Sox have been looking for a long time for a leader in the clubhouse. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not, like, I think we've sort of devalued Xander Bogaerts and what he brought to that clubhouse. I guarantee you, if Xander Bogaerts was still here, Rafael Devers would still be here. That's a fact. He's not going anywhere. I guarantee you, if Xander Bogaerts was still in a Red Sox uniform, Rafael Devers will still be here because Rafael Devers adored Xander Bogaerts. They're the bestest of friends. And if you're looking at the Alex Bregman thing now and saying, okay, we're going to take away our one leader since Xander Bogaerts in this clubhouse, who is a leader who is also an all-star level player, has been an all-star, a Gold Glover, Silver Slugger Award winner, probably would if he weren't injured, probably would be a starter, or he probably still might make the all-star game. That tells you something about this guy. And I think his relationship with Alex Cora, his ability to be able to speak both languages, he speaks both Spanish and English, right? And I think that's something that can't be ignored. He was a sort of the linchpin and the guy that drew from both that he understood what his Latin teammates were saying in addition to his American teammates. So that shouldn't be glossed over. And I think if they were to trade him, oh my gosh, I would not want to be in Boston that day. I would make sure I'll be at my parents' house in New York.
No doubt about that. I tell you what. Yeah, now Xander Bogaerts is kicking it in San Diego. Mookie Betts is kicking it in LA. Red Sox Nation has not forgiven the Red Sox for getting rid of Mookie Betts.
We're kicking it in the cold, and I mean,
and now we're kicking it in New England, and here we are. And I tell you what, yeah. And I tell you, not only that though, you look at this whole situation with Alex Bregman, and he is the leader. He is that guy, right? I mean, he's kind of like that player coach and a guy that has the credentials on the back of the resume. I definitely don't think Alex Bregman should go anywhere. I think the Boston Red Sox need him because, to your point, Julian, the leadership hasn't been there. We haven't had a decent second baseman since Pedroia left. We haven't, like long gone are the days of the David Ortizes and the Veritek's and the Dustin Pedroias and the Ukes and all those guys. It's a different generation right now. All right. So Jarren Duran came in at number 2 in ESPN's rankings with a 25% chance of being traded. Is moving Duran, in your opinion, the smartest move, given the outfield depth, or is he untouched? I mean, nobody is untouchable, but is he probably not on the trading block?
I would say there's a chance. I would put it probably a little bit more than that, probably 35, 40. Well, not 40 might be too high. 35% chance, maybe. I don't know where I got 35 from, but a little bit higher than that. Let's just say 35%. Because look, they do need to upgrade somewhere. And I think if you're looking at the outfield depth, you look at Roman Anthony, who I think is going to be a really good player. He can handle left field, particularly handle it at Fenway. Then you're looking at Ceddanne Rafaela, who is I think there should be their center fielder for years to come, because you cannot find a center fielder like that in baseball. Like they don't come that easy, right? It's sort of like a great catcher or a great shortstop. You don't just move those guys for nothing when they have that particular skill set. And then you look at somebody like Wilyer Abreu. I mean, I would put him up there somewhere, possibly with Jarren Duran, but I think they might want to hold on to Wilyer Abreu, how he handles right field, particularly at Fenway. This guy won a Gold Glove last year. And so where does that leave you? Well, that leaves you with Jarren Duran, and the question saying, okay, he has probably a couple, 2 or 3 more years of team control, if you're looking at that. And he's coming. He has the track record from last season of playing well, so he can possibly tap into at least some of that. At least he might not be able to tap into all of that, but he can tap into some of it. And I think if you're looking at Jarren Duran, you're saying, okay, and you're a team like, say, I don't know, the Mets, or a team like the Giants. I know the Giants were on the list of the teams there. Just his athleticism alone and what he brings to the table in terms of tenacity, I think that could be a draw to a lot of teams, despite what his numbers have been for parts of this year, particularly for the last month and a half or so. So if you're looking at this situation and you're saying, okay, where can we get the most value for a player? I think it would have to be a Jarren Duran.
Yeah, from a value perspective, I can understand it. From a morale perspective and a clubhouse perspective, if they trade Jarren Duran after letting Rafael, not to put Jarren Duran and Rafael Devers in the same talent category, I'm not suggesting that, but I still think this team goes as Jarren Duran goes. And I think that this is a team that is better with Jarren Duran on it than they are without him. That, I just think that would be crazy. Can we have a discussion, though, Julian, about the catcher position? Because if he could, Carlos Narvaez should be behind the plate every single day. I understand the man can't play 7 days a week. I get it. I know how difficult it is to be a catcher and the toll it takes on your body. And no disrespect to Connor Wong, but he is not the answer behind the plate because he's not doing it defensively. I mean, Austin Barnes is kicking it on the couch right now. The Los Angeles Dodgers, DFA'd him. Austin Barnes has caught some pretty important innings, especially in the postseason. Do the Red Sox make a change for the backup catcher position that perhaps could give him just a little bit more pop? I mean, even a little bit would be a dramatic improvement on what Connor Wong has been able to do offensively for this club.
He's been one of the worst offensive players for this team this season that I've seen in recent years, and I don't mean any shade by that. Like, it's just the fact, like,
Oh, he's just
the guy,
struggling. There's no way around
guy
it.
just got his first RBI of the season the other day against the Angels. It's June, right? Like, that's hard to do. Like, we were on officially, like, we were on Connor Wong RBI watch in the press
Yeah.
box. We were like, when's he gonna get his first RBI? And it didn't come until June. And then the catching part of it, yeah, he's improved in framing and stuff like that, but his arm's a little weaker, and I just don't see it from a catching perspective of him being able to block balls. Like, Alani, like, like, if there's a run on third base, right, and you're an 0-2 count, a pitcher likely wants to sort of throw that ball in the dirt
In the dirt.
try to.
Don't get me started on catching on one leg with the ball in the dirt and
Oh
running
my
on
gosh,
third.
it drives
Don't get
me
me
nuts.
started.
My dad hasn't watched baseball in years, and he was watching last night, and he was like, "What's this one knee thing?" And I was like, "Dad, long story. We can't get into that. Like, we'll talk
We don't
about
have
this
enough
later."
time. We don't have enough
We don't have
time to
enough
get
time
into
for
that.
that. And he's like, "But what is it? Like, why are they doing that?" I'm like, "They even do it runners on third base." I'm like, "Yeah, they do it." So I think if you're looking at that, and it's like, you can't trust your guy to block, right? That puts a pitcher in a position where he's a little gunshot, right? He doesn't want to throw that ball in the dirt like that. So I think when you have a Connor Wong behind there, pitchers aren't just that confident, and you see it on a day in and day out basis. I'm not blaming obviously him for Walker Buehler's start, but you do wonder if Narvaez is back there, who can slow the guy down a little bit more, right? Like, who can say, "Hey, relax, take your time, let's reset. This is what you're doing. This you're pulling off, et cetera, et cetera." Wong just hasn't been that guy. Nice guy, great guy, but when you're in the business of winning, I don't think Wong can necessarily be a part of that.
Right. So don't you think that could be an automatic upgrade for
Yeah,
the Sox if they
for
think
sure.
about, hey, like, let's go out and get a catcher that is available for the second half of the season, at least to provide a little bit more offense. So it's not always Carlos
For sure.
Narvaez that we're counting
And,
on.
and, and you're seeing it too, Alana, with like the way in which Carlos Narvaez has never done this before, right? And like, getting through an entire season is hard.
Yeah.
Getting through an entire season as a catcher feels like you're being hit by a freight train every day, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, you got a game plan for the pitcher, you got a game plan for your own pitcher. You have to, and then, oh, by the way, you have to go out there and hit.
Hmm.
That's a lot on a catcher have to be able to do that. And if we're looking at this situation, certainly, I think Connor they can certainly upgrade at the catching position.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that might be an obvious choice. I mean, obvious to me, but what do I know? All right. So ESPN gives Aroldis Chapman and Walker Buehler 35% odds, Julian, of being traded. Would you package veteran arms for younger talent or keep them for a playoff push? I think so much of these answers are going to change in the next like 6 to 10 days based on what happens.
I know. And this is why this is such a crucial part of the season, because heaven forbid for the Red Sox, if they drop another 2 or 3 series, and now you're looking at a team that's like 9 games under 500. Okay, now we're talking about a full fire sale, right? Like that's where you get into sell territory. I don't think that'll happen, because somehow this team has figured out ways to win when you don't expect them to win, to get back to that 500 mark. But they haven't been able to stay over that 500 mark for the last 4 years, which has been the issue with this team. But yeah, I think this, if there's a guy that you're going to package, or 2 guys that you're going to package, why not package them for the proven veterans? And oh, by the way, I mean, why not package them why not package the few veterans that you have that are proven winners? And like I said, by the way, Aroldis Chapman is a guy that is pitching his best that he's
Hmm.
probably has in his career, or for at least for me, for the most part. I'm like, where is the Chapman from the Yankees where you're like, oh, he's going to walk the first 2 guys? Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday. He was like, whenever Chapman came in the game, he's a huge Yankee fan. He said, I always kept my Pepto-Bismol on hand. Like, you just never knew what was going to happen. And so this year, the Red Sox haven't needed any Pepto-Bismol with him. He's been like the shutdown guy. And so if there's a player that you can get value for, in terms of sending him to a real contender, say, like, I don't know, the Dodgers or the Mets or somebody like that and trying to get value back, I think he can draw some value there. And Walker Buehler, I know he's had his struggles, but as we know, he's a veteran. These guys have their ways of figuring things out. And I believe he has the talent to figure out. Now, does he figure it out? I don't know. That last performance for me was a little bit alarming. I really didn't see that. I started feeling bad for the guy. It's like, oh my gosh, how on an island do you feel after that type of outing? But he's been proven in the past, and perhaps an environment where it's fueled by consistent winning might help him turn the page and turn back into the star that we knew from the past.
Yeah, it always talks about change of scenery, and the Dodgers didn't even offer Walker Buehler a qualifying offer. And so far, the change of scenery has not been a good one for butane. All right, still more to come here on 310 to Left, brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. We're talking Tanner Houck and what is going wrong. Julian mentioned even in AAA, it doesn't look good. We'll dive deeper when we come back. All right, everybody, welcome back to 310 to Left. You're talking with Julian McWilliams of CBS Sports. I'm Alana Rizzo, in for Tom Karen. Let's talk a bit about Tanner Houck and his rehab outing. Julian, Tanner Houck was so good early on in the season until he got hurt, and he's just not been able to find his form again. From what you've seen so far in his outings in AAA, what do you take away from them?
I think a lot of it has to do, Alana, with his strike throwing. I mean, I haven't seen much of him in AAA, but I can point to the line looks very, very similar to what it was in the season and in spring training. And I think you're looking at a guy who is just the strike throwing isn't there. Right? And I think his stuff in the zone, when it is in the zone, it's getting hit. And his slider, his go-to pitch is lacking its usual movement. It's lacking its usual horizontal movement. So I think if you're looking at that, coupled with the fact that the confidence isn't there. He's always been a very slow heartbeat guy who's always just seems to be in his own world, right? I mean, even last year when he got hit in the face with that comeback or 2 years ago, I believe it was last year, the years sort of merged together. The year before last, when he got hit in the face with the ball, he just walked off the field. And it's like, dude, you have a broken orbital bone. Like I would have been like crawling on the floor crying, but nothing seemed to faze him. And now this year, everything just seemingly seems to faze him. And I think if you're looking at him now, you're just saying, how does he get right? And the thing is, I don't know. I don't know what the reset is. They've tried giving him a reset on the IL. I know he had some, I think in part some stuff going on, but I think partially it was to give him a breather, give him a blow. And I don't know, that just hasn't seemed to work out in AAA. And you kind of feel for the guy because he's a good character guy, sort of goes about his work the right way, but he just hasn't had the results.
How confident are you that he's back in this Red Sox starting rotation before the All-Star break or even after the All-Star break?
I'm not that confident at all, to be honest. I think he will be back in a Red Sox uniform at some point, right? I don't think they can't hide him forever. But what that role is still to be determined. I don't know what his role might be when he comes back because you can't throw him back out there in the rotation. He gave up 11 earned runs twice this year, twice in the game. That's very, very hard to do. So I think if you're looking at him, you're saying, he can help you, sure, but it might have to be in the bullpen because he doesn't have to think about turning over a lineup. So perhaps he can go to a bullpen, get some confidence, see the ball, see him miss some bats, be able to, empty the tank just in one inning, and then move on from there and possibly get back in the rotation next season. But I can't see them bringing him back in the rotation. He doesn't have the results in AAA because it's been the same thing since spring training. And I know spring training doesn't count for anything because, hey, you're a veteran at spring training, you're going to figure it out. Well, it carried into the season, and now it's carried into AAA. That's a bad omen for me.
Is it just the slider, Julian? Is there something else that you're noticing with the entire repertoire that maybe it's more between the ears than it is even stuff that's mechanical?
I think the fastball too. I think the four-seam fastball, the velocity's there, but it just doesn't have the usual hop to it. And Tanner throws from an awkward, slot that's hard to pick up. I think at one point I was like, is he tipping his pitches? It turned out he was not tipping his pitches. So I think a lot of it has to do. I think to be honest, a lot of it is just his slider, because his slider is that good. You always see him on the pitching ninja guy who posts him. How I'm talking about the horizontal break of his slider, and his stuff is disgusting. I mean, Tanner has some of the best stuff in the league, right? And I spoke to him during the offseason. I mean, last year I was like, what's gone into you having this rise and turning into an all-star? And he says, Andrew Bailey just always reminds me that, pitching is just playing a game of catch, and I'm just out there playing a game of catch. Tanner Houck has to get back to playing a game of catch.
How much do you think lack of stabilization or lack of consistency in this Red Sox starting rotation has been the issues for the all-encompassing issues of the team? I mean, you can count on Garrett Crochet, right? But it can't be – Garrett Crochet can't pitch every single day. You figure you can pencil in a W every fifth day, but the other 4 spots have really been quite up in the air. Yeah,
they certainly have. And I think a lot of it has to do with the lack of production from the rotation. If you look at it, Alana, like there have been teams in the past that have just won solely on their pitching. The Giants – from the Buster Posey, Matt Madison, Bumgarner, Tim Lincecum, Matt days. Those guys didn't hit. They were scoring like 2 or 3 runs a game. And you know what? They won 3 World Series in 6 years, right? And I think if when you look at those guys, you're saying, okay, there is a blueprint to get to winning a championship. And a lot of it has to come down to playing good defense and pitching. The Giants did that for parts of for most of the 2010 to 2020, right? They pitched and they played defense. And I think that's they had so much success. And if you're looking at this team now, you're going to say somebody's going to have to step up besides Garrett Crochet. Is it Brian Bayo? Is it Walker Buehler? Is it Richard Fitz? I don't know. But somebody's going to have to step up to make this team get this team back to where they're supposed to be, and that's the postseason.
Yeah, Julian, I think it's the answer to that question is everybody. I think everybody in that starting rotation, not named Garrett Crochet, needs to step up. We appreciate you guys listening to us right here on 310 to Left. Don't forget to give Julian McWilliams a follow. He does a great work for CBS Sports. We appreciate him taking the time to be with us today. I'm Alana Rizzo, in for Tom Caron. 310 to Left is brought to you by your New England Ford dealers and F-Series, America's best-selling truck for 48 years and the official truck of your Boston Red Sox. We will be back on Tuesday. Thanks for being here. Have a great weekend, all. Bye-bye.